Hey guys, tonight, we are going to gently time travel to a place that smells vaguely of coal smoke, damp wool, and polite repression. We're diving into Victorian England, where saying what you mean was considered terribly gauche. So people invented a complex, secret language using only flowers. It was the original cryptic text message, but with more thorns and a much shorter battery life. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive the first 24 hours. Not because of disease or crime, those are just spicy rumors, but because of the sheer, soul-crushing difficulty of navigating a world without direct communication. And the corsets? Definitely the CORSETS. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support makes these quiet little journeys possible. Drop me a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always fascinating to see where our little sleepy community is spread out across the globe, all settling in for the night. Asterisk now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk, the first thing you notice isn't what you see, but what you can't. A thick, yellow-gray fog hangs heavy in the air, clinging to everything with a damp, cool embrace. This isn't the clean, romantic mist of a fairy tale. This is a London pea souper, a formidable blend of river fog and a million coal fires all exhaling at once. It tastes metallic on your tongue and muffles the world, turning the sprawling, chaotic city into a series of intimate, shrouded stages. The gas lamps, which should have been extinguished hours ago, are still burning with a soft, hazy glow, each one a lonely beacon in the gloom, casting just enough light to illuminate the slick, dark cobblestones beneath your feet. Asterisk, you pull the collar of your heavy wool coat a little tighter, the dampness of the air already seeping into the fabric. The sound of your own footsteps is strangely loud in the quiet, a steady rhythm on the wet stone. You are on a narrow side street, lined with tall, soot-stained brick houses, whose windows are dark, sleeping eyes. There's a quiet here that feels ancient, broken only by the distant, rhythmic clop-clop of a single horse pulling a cart somewhere beyond your vision. The sound seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. A ghost in the fog. Asterisk, as you step toward the end of the street, preparing to cross onto a slightly wider thoroughfare. A small shape detaches itself from a darkened doorway. It's a child, no older than 10, holding a worn-down broom made of twigs, a crossing sweeper. With a few determined scrapes, the child clears a path for you through the thick layer of mud, grime, and horse-related unpleasantness that coats the road. This is a common and surprisingly formal transaction. You reach into your pocket, your gloved fingers finding a cold, heavy penny, and drop it into the child's waiting hand. There's no smile, just a quiet nod of acknowledgement before the small figure melts back into the fog, broom in tow, waiting for the next respectable pair of shoes to protect. Asterisk, you make your way onto the busier street, and the soundscape begins to change. The muffled quiet gives way to a low, continuous rumble. You can hear the jingle of harnesses, the groan of wooden wheels, and the faint, indistinct calls of vendors. Carriages and hansoms emerge from the mist like great, dark beasts, their lamps cutting fleeting tunnels of light before they are swallowed again. Everyone is dressed in 50 shades of gray, black, and soot. The men in their severe top hats, and the women with their bonnets and impossibly wide skirts, which somehow seem to stay miraculously clean. You wonder if this constant, heavy quiet, this need to peer through a dense veil just to see a few feet ahead, is why people here seem so contained. Historians still wonder if the pervasive London fog genuinely shaped the reserved, private nature of the Victorian psyche, or if that's just a convenient metaphor we apply with hindsight. Living in it, feeling its weight on your shoulders, you suspect there's some truth to it. Asterisk, the air is a cocktail of smells, the ever-present coal smoke, the earthy scent of wet pavement, the sharp tang of horse manure, and something else, a faint, sweet, and living fragrance that cuts through the industrial haze. It's the scent of damp earth and crushed green stems. It's the perfume of petals, 100 different kinds, all mingling into a single, hopeful promise. It's getting stronger with every step you take, pulling you forward. A thread of natural sweetness in a world of brick and iron. You follow it without question, your pace quickening slightly. You are heading toward Covent Garden. The fog seems too thin just a little, as if making way for the source of that beautiful, impossible smell. The low rumble of the city is becoming clearer now, resolving into individual voices. The clatter of crates, and the unmistakable sound of 1,000 conversations happening all at once. You are approaching the heart of London's floral world, the place where the city's silent conversations begin. The closer you get, the more the fog seems to retreat, not because it's lifting, but because it's being pushed back by a sheer force of life. The air becomes heavy, not with soot, but with a dizzying perfume. Ahead of you, a grand structure materializes from the gray haze. The great central market hall of Covent Garden. Its proud neoclassical pillars and vast arched windows seem almost out of place. A Roman temple dedicated to commerce, above a magnificent roof of iron and glass, stretches into the fog. A testament to Victorian ingenuity, designed to let in the light and keep out the rain. A battle it only ever partially wins. The low rumble you heard earlier has now crescendoed into a full-throated roar of human activity. A living organism of trade. You step under the cover of the great hall, and the world transforms. The damp, gray quiet of the London street is instantly replaced by an explosion of sensory information. The air is so thick with the scent of 1,000 different flowers, it feels like you could drink it. It's overwhelming, a perfumed assault. The dominant note is the heady, almost spicy scent of roses, piled high in overflowing wicker baskets. But beneath that, you can pick out the sharp, clean fragrance of lilies, the sweet, powdery whisper of violets, the earthy greenness of ferns and moss, and the zesty tang of fresh-cut citrus from the fruit sellers nearby. It's the smell of the countryside, concentrated and weaponized into a commercial force. Your eyes struggle to keep up. Where the city outside was a monochrome sketch, this place is a riot of impossible color. There are buckets brimming with scarlet roses, their petals still jeweled with dew. Heaps of delicate purple-blue violets are mounded on trays, their tiny faces looking up expectantly. Tall, elegant lilies stand like pale sentinels, and cascades of white baby's breath soften the edges of every display. It's a breathtaking, chaotic landscape of petals and stems. All around you, the market is in full swing. Porters, with impossibly high stacks of wooden crates on their backs, weave through the crowd, shouting warnings. Voices call out prices, haggle, and share gossip in a thick, almost impenetrable Cockney accent. And then you see them, the famous flower girls. They are the lifeblood of this place, the intermediaries between this floral wonderland and the buttoned-up world outside. They are mostly young women, some mere girls, dressed in worn but sturdy clothes, their hands stained with green from stems and dirt from roots. They move with a quick, confident energy that seems at odds with the delicate blossoms they carry in their baskets. "Lovely violets, sir. Penny a bunch," one calls out, holding up a small, tight posy. Another catches your eye, a girl with fiery red hair tucked under a shabby bonnet. "A rose for your sweetheart. Tell us she's the prettiest thing y'all seen all day, 'cept for this rose." Oh, course. Her sales pitch is a well-practiced blend of charm and cheek, a performance perfected over hundreds of transactions. You get the feeling refusing her would be a more difficult social maneuver than negotiating a peace treaty. Historians still debate the true social standing of these girls. To the wealthy patrons who bought their flowers, they were often romanticized as figures of pastoral innocence, cheerful daughters of nature. But the reality was far harsher. It was a precarious, back-breaking job, and many Londoners viewed them with suspicion, seeing them as existing on the fringes of respectable society. Looking at them now, you see neither innocent angels nor streetwise urchins, but expert salespeople navigating a complex and demanding world, with skill and a healthy dose of wit. Asterisk. You wander deeper into the market, past stalls selling not just flowers, but enormous cabbages, pyramids of apples, and exotic fruits you can't even name. A quirky detail you notice is how some flowers are kept separate from others. A stall owner gruffly explains that it's bad luck to mix hawthorn blossoms with other flowers for a bouquet meant for a home, as they were believed to invite illness. It's a strange collision of ancient folklore and modern commerce. You're witnessing a system with its own unwritten rules, its own superstitions, and its own language. And as you look at the sheer variety, you start to grasp the potential of that language. If a red rose means love, what does a pale yellow one mean? What is the difference between giving someone a single gardenia versus a whole bouquet of them? The flowers are the alphabet, but you don't have the dictionary. You step away from the boisterous, fragrant chaos of the central market, turning down a narrow alleyway you noticed a moment ago. The change is immediate and profound. The wall of sound from the market softens into a distant, gentle hum in the air, while still carrying a hint of floral sweetness. Now smells primarily of old paper, leather, and dust. It's a scent that promises quiet, contemplation, and the slow turning of pages. The alley is cobblestoned and cramped, the tall buildings on either side leaning in towards each other, as if sharing a centuries-old secret. They block out most of the weak morning light, creating a permanent state of twilight. Asterisk. Halfway down the alley, you find what you were subconsciously looking for. A small shop front, its windows so thick with grime and crowded with teetering stacks of books that you can barely see inside. A simple wooden sign, its gold leaf lettering faded and peeling, hangs crookedly above the door. It reads, G.F. Threadgold Bookseller, New and Antiquarian. The door itself is painted a deep, dark green, its paint cracked like old porcelain. A small brass bell is attached, promising a gentle jingle to announce your arrival. You feel a slight sense of trepidation, as if you're about to enter a private, sacred space. Pushing the heavy door open, the little bell delivers its promised chime, a delicate, tinny sound that seems to echo in the profound silence within. Asterisk. The interior is even more cluttered and chaotic than the window suggested. Books are everywhere. They are piled on the floor in precarious towers that threaten to topple with the slightest nudge. They are crammed into towering dark wood shelves that reach all the way to the high, shadowed ceiling. They are splayed open on desks, their pages filled with elegant script or dense black print. The air is thick with the rich, musty perfume of decaying paper and old leather bindings. A smell that any lover of books finds more comforting than the most expensive perfume. A thin layer of dust coats every surface, sparkling in the single beam of light that cuts through the gloom from a grimy skylight high above. Asterisk. From behind a mountain of leather-bound tomes, a figure emerges. It's a man, perhaps in his late 60s, with a fringe of white hair circling a bald head and spectacles perched precariously on the end of his nose. He peers at you over the top of them, his expression one of mild curiosity rather than annoyance at the interruption. He doesn't say a word, just raises an eyebrow, a silent invitation for you to state your purpose. His waistcoat is stained with ink, and a fine layer of dust seems to have settled permanently on his shoulders. He looks less like a shopkeeper and more like a hermit who just happens to live in a cave made of books. Asterisk. You hesitate for a moment, feeling a bit foolish. I'm looking for a book. About flowers, you say, your voice sounding strangely loud in the quiet shop. About what they mean. Asterisk. The bookseller gives a slow, thoughtful blink. He doesn't laugh or seem surprised. He simply pushes his spectacles back up his nose, turns and shuffles toward a dark, forgotten corner of the shop without a word. You follow, carefully navigating the literary obstacle course. He runs a long, bony finger along the spines of a row of small, slim volumes, his touch surprisingly gentle. "Ah," he murmurs, more to himself than to you. He plucks one from the shelf, its cover a faded, nondescript blue. He blows a cloud of dust from its top edge, a gesture so practiced it's almost elegant. Asterisk, he hands it to you. The book is small, fits perfectly in your palm. It's titled The Language of Flowers, a compendium of floral poesy. There's no author listed, only the publisher. The cover is simple, unadorned. You open it, and the pages are brittle and yellowed with age. The text is dense, and small, delicate illustrations of flowers are interspersed throughout. You see an entry for acacia followed by the word friendship, then amaryllis for pride. It's exactly what you were looking for. A dictionary. A key to the code you witnessed in the market. Asterisk, this is the fascinating, quirky reality of floriography. While the language of flowers seems like an ancient, timeless tradition, its popularity exploded in the Victorian era due to the mass publication of exactly these kinds of small, affordable dictionaries. Dozens, if not hundreds, of different versions were printed, often with conflicting meanings for the same flower, which must have led to some truly spectacular misunderstandings. Historians still wonder how anyone kept track of which dictionary their intended recipient was using. Was there a socially agreed-upon official version, or was it a constant gamble? It was like texting someone an emoji, unsure if their phone would display it as a smiling face or a pile of poop. Asterisk, how much? You ask, holding the small blue volume as if it were a precious artifact. Asterisk, the bookseller looks at the book, then at you. "6pence, he says, his voice a dry rustle. "It feels more than fair." You pay him, the coins disappearing into a deep pocket of his waistcoat. He gives you another one of his silent, thoughtful nods, a gesture that feels like both a transaction and a dismissal. You clutch the small book in your hand, its sharp corners pressing into your palm. You have it. The secret knowledge. The guide. You turn and leave the shop, the little bell chiming your departure, and step back into the gray, misty alleyway, feeling as if you've just completed a clandestine exchange. The distant hum of the market is still there, but now it sounds different. It sounds like a world you are about to understand. Asterisk, you make your way back through the dwindling fog, which is finally beginning to yield to a pale, watery midday sun. The streets are more crowded now, the pace of the city quickening, but the noise and the motion seem to exist at a slight remove, buffered by the small, precious object you hold in your hand. The blue book feels like a secret key, and you are eager to find the lock it fits. You arrive back at your lodgings, a respectable but modest boarding house with a lingering scent of boiled cabbage and beeswax. Your room is small and tidy, dominated by a large sash window that looks out over a quiet garden square. A small fire is already crackling in the hearth, a welcome defense against the persistent dampness of the London air. Asterisk. Sinking into a slightly lumpy but comfortable armchair by the window, you finally allow yourself a moment to properly examine your purchase. The book feels solid and dense in your hands. You run your thumb over the faded cover, tracing the embossed letters of the title. The compendium of floral poesy sounds so wonderfully, unnecessarily dramatic. Opening it again, you breathe in that rich, sweet scent of old paper. The frontispiece is a delicate, hand-colored illustration of a bouquet, a perfect little tussie-mussy, tied with a silk ribbon. You turn the first few pages, which are filled with overly sentimental poetry about the silent speech of the blooming creation and the eloquence of a fragrant sigh. It's all a bit much, but you can't help but smile at the earnestness of it all. This wasn't just a game. To them, it was a serious art form. Asterisk then. You get to the dictionary itself. It's laid out alphabetically, Just as the bookseller promised, you decide to start with the classics, the ones you think you already know. You find rose, red, and the entry is simple and direct. I love you. No ambiguity there. It's the foundational phrase, the one everyone knows. But then you look further down the page. Rose, white is listed as I am worthy of you, or innocence. Rose. Yellow is more complicated. Jealousy, or a decrease of love. You can already imagine the domestic dramas sparked by a poorly chosen bouquet from a clueless suitor. A single shade of difference turns a declaration of love into a passive-aggressive accusation. Asterisk, you keep turning the pages, your finger tracing the lists of flowers and their meanings. Some are wonderfully intuitive. Oak leaf stands for bravery and strength. Forget-me-not is, unsurprisingly, true love and memories. But others are bizarrely specific and delightfully random. You discover that a striped carnation means refusal or no. Basil signifies hatred. You make a mental note to be very careful next time someone offers you a pesto-based dish. Hydrangea is listed as a boaster or heartlessness, which seems incredibly rude to a perfectly lovely and voluminous shrub. A truly quirky and lesser-known fact is the meaning attached to potato vine, which apparently signifies benevolence. Imagine receiving a bouquet with potato flowers in it, compliment wrapped in a carbohydrate. Asterisk. Historians have long debated the true origin of these meanings. Some were pulled from classical mythology, others from Shakespearean plays or local folklore. Many, however, seem to have been invented wholesale by the authors of these very dictionaries, who were in a competitive frenzy to produce the most comprehensive and authoritative guide. It's entirely possible that one publisher in the 1830s just decided that hydrangeas looked a bit arrogant, and through the power of the printing press, made it so. You are essentially reading a 19th century version of Urban Dictionary, codified and printed on lovely, brittle paper. Asterisk. The afternoon has softened into a gentle, dusky light that fills your room with long, quiet shadows. The fire purrs contentedly in the grate, casting a warm, flickering glow on the walls. You've spent hours with your little blue dictionary, and the strange, poetic logic of the flower language is beginning to settle in your mind. The abstract lists of names and meanings are starting to feel less like a vocabulary test and more like a palette of colors, ready for you to paint with. You decide it's time to move from theory to practice. It's time to assemble your first tussy-mussy. Asterisk, the term itself is delightful, a whimsical, almost childish name for what was a very serious social tool. A tussy-mussy, as your book explains, is a small, circular bouquet, also known as a nip. Its purpose was twofold. First, to be a portable, fashionable accessory that helped mask the, let's say, robust smells of the city. Second, and more importantly, it was a vehicle for a coded message. You don't have a garden at your disposal, but you did have the foresight to pick up a few modest bunches from a quieter vendor on your way out of the market. You lay them out on the small table by the window, a few deep red carnations, a sprig of fragrant rosemary, a handful of delicate blue violets, and some simple green ferns. Asterisk, your dictionary is open to the section on the grammar of the bouquet. This, you realize, is where the real artistry lies. It's not just what flowers you choose, but how you arrange them. The central flower, the book explains, is the main clause of your sentence, the core idea. The flowers surrounding it act as adjectives and adverbs, modifying and adding nuance to the central theme. You decide to build a message of simple, steadfast affection. Asterisk, you start with a red carnation for the center. You'll look it up again to be sure. Alas, for my poor heart, or deep love. Perfect, a little dramatic, but that's the point. You place it in the middle, its ruffled, spicy scented petals forming a tight knot of color. Now, for the modifiers, you consult your book for the violets. Modesty and faithfulness. An excellent sentiment to accompany a declaration of love. You carefully arrange the tiny blue violets around the central carnation. Their deep color, a beautiful contrast to the rich red. The message is building. My deep love is modest and faithful. Asterisk next, the rosemary. You crush a tiny leaf between your fingers, and the sharp, piney scent fills the air. It's a clean, invigorating smell. The book lists rosemary as remembrance. You add a few sprigs to the arrangement, tucking them between the violets. The message now reads something like, "Remember my modest, faithful, and deep love." It's getting a bit wordy, but the sentiment is clear. Finally, you frame the entire bouquet with the delicate, feathery fronds of the fern. A quick check of the dictionary reveals that fern means sincerity and magic. You like that combination. Your message is now sincere, and perhaps a little magical. You have composed your first floral sentence. Asterisk, but the grammar doesn't stop there. One of the most fascinating and quirky details of this whole endeavor is the ribbon. The book explains that a ribbon tied to the left indicates the message applies to the giver, while a ribbon tied to the right directs the meaning toward the receiver. You find a length of simple silk ribbon you had tucked away, and tie it carefully around the stems. You tie the bow on the right side. The message is now officially for someone else. You've just written a short, fragrant letter. Historians still debate how consistently these intricate rules of grammar, the inverted flower, the left or right ribbon, the hand of delivery, were actually followed. Was it a universally understood system, or was it more like modern emoji usage, where one person's "I'm being playful" is another person's "I'm having a stroke"? The potential for miscommunication was, and remains, immense. Asterisk, you hold up your creation. It's a small, tight bundle of color and fragrance, unassuming to the untrained eye. But to you, it's a paragraph. It's a carefully constructed piece of communication. You can see how this became an obsession. It's a secret game played in plain sight. It's a way to express emotions too bold or too vulnerable for a world that prized restraint above all else. It's a quiet rebellion disguised as a fashion accessory. Asterisk, to complete the tussy-mussy. You'd typically use a special holder, often made of silver, ivory, or mother of. These holders, called porte-bouquets, were often elaborate, with a small ring and chain to secure them to a lady's finger or chatelaine, ensuring she wouldn't drop her fragrant message during a dance. You don't have a silver porte-bouquet, so you just hold the stems. The coolness of the damp leaves a pleasant contrast to the warmth of your room. Asterisk, looking at your little bouquet, you feel a connection to the people of this era. You understand the appeal of a language that is both beautiful and deniable. If your message of love was poorly received, you could always feign ignorance. What? It's just a bunch of pretty flowers I liked. You're reading far too much into it. It was the perfect system for a society terrified of showing its hand. You place your finished hussy-mussy in a glass of water on the windowsill. Its colors vibrant against the darkening gray of the London evening. It's a silent, beautiful statement in a quiet room, and you feel a strange sense of pride. You've learned the language, and now you've spoken your first word. Asterisk, a new day has dawned, or rather, it has seeped into existence through the persistent London haze. The watery morning light illuminates the little tussy-musy on your windowsill. Its colors still bright, its message of sincere, magical, and faithful love, a quiet greeting. Armed with your newfound knowledge and a surprising degree of confidence, you decide to take your skills out into the field for some practical observation. It's one thing to build a floral sentence in the privacy of your room. It's another to try and read one in the wild. You dress, pocket your small blue dictionary, your secret weapon, and head out, making your way toward one of the city's great green lungs, Hyde Park. Asterisk. As you enter the park through one of its grand gates, the familiar city sounds of iron-shod wheels and street vendors begin to fade, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves, the chirping of sparrows, and the distant laughter of children. The air here is cleaner, fresher, carrying the scent of damp earth and cut grass. The park is a carefully manicured version of nature, a landscape designed for strolling, for seeing, and for being seen. Wide graveled paths meander through rolling lawns, past artfully arranged copses of trees and ornamental flower beds that are just beginning to show their spring colors. Asterisk. You find a strategically placed bench along the Serpentine, the long, elegant lake that snakes through the park's center. From here, you have a perfect vantage point to observe the fashionable parade. This is the Victorian equivalent of scrolling through a social media feed. People aren't just here for fresh air. They are here to perform, to display their status, their wealth, and, as you now suspect, their most private feelings. You settle in, trying to look as casual as possible, like a person simply enjoying the view, when in reality, you are a linguistics spy on a reconnaissance mission. Asterisk. It doesn't take long to spot your first subjects. A young couple walks slowly along the path in front of you. They are the picture of propriety. He is tall and severe, in a dark suit and top hat. She is encased in a formidable construction of silk and whalebone, a delicate parasol angled just so. They walk a carefully prescribed distance apart, their conversation appearing stilted and formal. But your eyes are not on their faces. They are on their hands. In her gloved hand, she carries a small, simple posy of white heather. You subtly pull out your dictionary, shielding it with your hand as if reading a novel. You flip to H. Heather white. The book informs you, means protection, or wishes will come true. A hopeful, optimistic message. Asterisk. Then, you look at him. Tucked into the buttonhole of his lapel is a single, perfect sprig of myrtle. Back to the dictionary. M. Myrtle, you read, stands for love. A classic, simple, and direct response. The conversation you can't hear is irrelevant. The real dialogue is happening between the heather and the myrtle. She is saying, I hope for this, and he is responding, I love you. It's a silent, tender exchange, happening right there in public, completely invisible to anyone not fluent in their fragrant code. A little jolt of satisfaction runs through you. It works. You can actually read it. Asterisk. You continue your surveillance. An older woman sits alone on a nearby bench, a large, rather gloomy-looking bouquet of marigolds resting beside her. A quick consultation with your book reveals marigold means grief or despair. Is she in mourning, or is she waiting for someone, intending to give them that rather depressing floral statement? The ambiguity is part of the language. Without context, some messages are impossible to fully decipher. Asterisk. A bit later, a more comical scene unfolds. Two young ladies are walking together, deep in what appears to be an animated conversation. One of them is holding a tussie-mussy that is predominantly yellow. You see bright yellow tulips, and even a few yellow roses. You don't even need the book for that one. Jealousy, a decrease of love. Your education in floriography has, until now, focused on the sweeter side of things, declarations of love, hope, and remembrance. It has been a gentle, poetic exploration, but as you spend another quiet evening by the fire with your little blue book, you decide it's time to delve into the darker, more interesting corners of this silent language. Every form of communication, you reason, must have a way to express negativity. It can't all be roses and myrtle. It's time to learn how to be rude, politely of course. This is Victorian England, after all. Asterisk. You turn to the pages you've previously skimmed past, the ones listing flowers with meanings that are less than complimentary. You are about to weaponize your knowledge, creating a mental arsenal of passive-aggressive petals. The first and most obvious candidates for insults are the ones you've already encountered. The yellow carnation for disdain, and the yellow rose for jealousy, are the blunt instruments of the floral world, the equivalent of a direct, unambiguous insult. But the true art, you discover, lies in the more subtle and creative expressions of displeasure. Asterisk. you find an entry for foxglove, a tall, beautiful flower with bell-shaped blossoms. Its meaning is listed as insincerity. This is a masterstroke of passive aggression. Imagine receiving a bouquet containing foxglove. It's beautiful, but it carries a silent accusation. I don't believe a word you're saying. It's an insult that the recipient might not even notice at first, allowing the giver a delicious, private sense of satisfaction. It's the floral equivalent of smiling sweetly while muttering under your breath. Asterisk, you keep reading, and the list of weaponized flora grows. You learn that tansy, a common, yellow, button-like wildflower, is used to issue a hostile declaration. I declare war against you. This seems shockingly direct for the era, but its humble, wildflower appearance means it could easily be overlooked or mistaken for a simple rustic filler. A quirky and lesser-known fact is that tansy was also a medicinal herb, historically used for things that are not suitable for polite conversation. This adds another layer of grim, unspoken meaning to its inclusion in a bouquet. It's not just a declaration of war. It's a truly nasty one. Asterisk, then there's the basil you chuckled about earlier, which simply means hatred, and the delightfully specific candy tuft, which signifies indifference. Can you imagine a more crushing, more dismissive message? It's not love. It's not hate. It's just a profound, botanical myth. It's the ultimate burn. You picture a hopeful suitor presenting a heartfelt tussy-mussy of red roses, only to receive a small, cheerful-looking bunch of candy tuft in return. Devastating. Asterisk, the genius of this negative language is its deniability. If confronted, one could always plead ignorance. Oh, goodness me. Does foxglove mean insincerity? I had no idea. I just thought the speckled petals were so very charming. The accuser is immediately put on the back foot, made to look like they are being overly sensitive and reading into things. It's a perfect system for a society that valued the appearance of harmony above all else. Historians often debate whether these negative meanings were used as frequently as the positive ones. Were people really sending each other bouquets of hatred and indifference? Or were these entries in the dictionaries more of a novelty, a dramatic flourish by the authors? Given human nature, you suspect they were used with surgical precision and quiet, vicious glee. Asterisk, you start to imagine composing an entire bouquet of insults. You could start with the central flower of candy tuft for indifference, surround it with foxglove for insincerity, and frame the whole thing with basil for pure, unadulterated hatred. For a final touch, you could add a sprig of monkshood, a beautiful but deadly poisonous plant whose floral meaning is a deadly foe is near. It would be an absolutely stunning bouquet, and it would be a silent, fragrant declaration of utter contempt. It's a testament to the Victorians' ingenuity that they found a way to be so thoroughly savage while maintaining perfect decorum. Asterisk, as you sit there, pondering the tactical applications of tansy and candy tuft, your landlady knocks gently on the door and enters with a small tray. On it is a cup of tea in a thick, cream-colored envelope. She places it on the table beside you, mentions that it was delivered by a messenger boy, and departs with a quiet nod. The envelope is made of heavy, expensive cards. Your name is written on the front, in an elegant, looping script. You pick it up. The wax seal on the back is intact, stamped with an elaborate coat of arms you don't recognize. Asterisk. You carefully break the seal and slide out the invitation inside. The engraved text is formal and ornate. It is an invitation from a lady and Lord Ashworth to a grand society ball at their London residence in 3 days' time. You have no idea who these people are. Perhaps a distant family connection your parents arranged. But that's not what captures your attention. Your eyes are fixed on the details. Carriages at midnight, it says, and at the bottom, in small, elegant script, floral decorations by the esteemed Monsieur Dubois of Paris. Asterisk, a thrill runs through you. A society ball? the absolute epicenter of nonverbal communication, of status displays, and of silent, coded messages. And they've hired a famous floral designer. The entire ballroom will be a text. It will be a vast, fragrant library of gossip, political maneuvering, flirtations, and rivalries. It will be your final exam. You look from the elegant invitation to your humble blue dictionary. You are no longer just a student. You have been invited to the arena, and now you know how to spot not just the declarations of love, but the declarations of war. Asterisk, the next 3 days pass in a haze of quiet anticipation and study. You spend your evenings with the little blue book, not just memorizing, but strategizing. You are no longer a casual tourist in this floral world. You are preparing for an immersive final exam. The invitation to the Ashworth's ball lies on your mantelpiece, a constant, creamy white reminder of the challenge to come. You feel a flutter of social anxiety, a very Victorian emotion, but it's overshadowed by a keen, scholarly excitement. You won't just be a guest at this ball. You'll be a cryptographer, a silent observer decoding the room in real time. Asterisk, on the night of the ball. You take extra care with your appearance. For a gentleman of the era, this is a ritual of starched collars, polished shoes, and the careful tying of a cravat. For a lady, it would be an even more complex architectural undertaking involving corsets, crinoline, and a team of assistants. Dressed and ready, you feel like you're putting on a uniform for the social battlefield ahead. Your only accessory is a quiet confidence in your secret knowledge. You have your dictionary memorized. You are ready. Asterisk, a hired hansom cab clatters through the gaslit streets. The rhythmic clopping of the horse's hooves a drumbeat marking your approach. The cab pulls up to a grand townhouse in a fashionable square, its facade ablaze with light. A queue of elegant carriages is lined up, depositing a stream of London's high society onto a carpet laid out over the pavement. The air, even out here, is humming with a nervous, excited energy. You step out of the cab, pay the driver, and join the flow of guests moving toward the brightly lit entrance. Asterisk, as you step through the grand doorway, you are greeted by two things simultaneously. First, a wave of warmth and light, a stark contrast to the cool, dark street. The house is illuminated by hundreds of candles and the brilliant, modern glow of gasoliers, their light reflecting off gilded mirrors and polished marble floors. Second, the scent. It hits you with the force of a physical wave. It is an astonishing, intoxicating perfume, far more complex and artfully arranged than the raw, chaotic scent of the Covent Garden market. This is the work of the famous Monsieur Dubois. Asterisk, you hand your invitation to a stern-looking butler, who announces your name to the receiving line in a booming, sonorous voice. You murmur polite greetings to Lord and Lady Ashworth, who are utter strangers to you, but smile graciously, their eyes already looking past you to the next guest. Then, you are free to step into the throng. The ballroom is a breathtaking spectacle. It's a vast, high-ceilinged room, with musicians playing a waltz from a gilded balcony, and the floor already crowded with swirling couples. The sound is a symphony of music, laughter, and the rustle of 1,000 silk gowns. Asterisk, but your attention is fixed on the flowers. They are everywhere. Massive, overflowing urns stand like sentinels in every corner, spilling forth cascades of roses, lilies, and exotic blossoms you've only seen in illustrations. Garlands of ivy and white jasmine are looped along the walls and draped over the archways. Each table in the adjoining supper room is adorned with an elaborate centerpiece. This isn't just decoration, it's a statement. It's a staggering display of wealth and taste. Monsieur Dubois, you realize, hasn't just decorated a room. He has authored a book. Asterisk, you begin your work. You move slowly along the perimeter of the room, trying to be inconspicuous as you analyze the arrangements. The dominant theme seems to be one of celebration and prosperity. You see an abundance of red and white roses, love and unity. camellias excellence and gratitude, and peonies happy life and prosperity. It's a masterfully constructed message from the hosts to their guests. We are delighted to have you here to celebrate our good fortune. It's a beautiful, if slightly boastful, floral welcome address, asterisk. You take a sip of your champagne, the crisp bubbles, a pleasant distraction from the sensory overload of the ballroom. You have been decoding the room's general atmosphere, the broad statements made by Monsieur Dubois's grand arrangements. Now, you decide to focus on the smaller, more personal, floral messages. The boutonnieres worn by the men and the tussie-mousses carried by the women. These are the individual sentences, the personal whispers within the grand, fragrant paragraph of the ball. As you scan the crowd, your eyes are drawn to a small, unassuming flower you haven't seen yet this evening. Tucked into the lapel of a portly older gentleman is a simple cluster of pale yellow primroses. In a room overflowing with exotic roses and opulent lilies, the primrose seems almost comically plain. It's the kind of flower you'd expect to see in a country lane, not in a grand London ballroom. It's humble, modest, and completely out of place. Your curiosity is piqued. What could this simple little flower possibly signify? You find a relatively quiet corner behind a large potted palma, convenient hiding spot for a floral spy and consult your mental dictionary. Primrose, you recall, has a few meanings. The most common is early youth, or I can't live without you. A rather intense declaration for a man of his age to be wearing on his chest. But you also remember a secondary, less common meaning, inconstancy, a strange and contradictory set of definitions. How could one flower mean both desperate attachment and fickle unreliability? This is the frustrating, beautiful chaos of floriography. But then, a piece of contemporary context clicks into place in your mind. This isn't just any flower. This is the primrose. You recall reading about it in the newspapers. The primrose has recently become associated, quite publicly, with one of the most famous and divisive figures in the entire British Empire, Benjamin Disraeli, the politician, novelist, and two-time Prime Minister. Disraeli is a towering figure, known for his flamboyant style, his sharp wit, and his deeply polarizing conservative politics. He is both revered by his supporters and loathed by his opponents. The story, as the papers tell it, is that Queen Victoria herself, a great admirer of Disraeli, once sent him a bouquet of primroses from her own gardens. He was said to have been deeply touched by the gesture, since his death a few years prior. To this fictional evening, his followers have adopted the primrose as the emblem of their political movement, the Primrose League. Wearing a primrose has become a subtle, but clear, public declaration of one's political allegiance. It's a Tory badge, a quiet, I'm with him. This is a widely accepted historical fact. The Primrose League was a real and enormously influential organization, founded in 1883, that promoted conservative principles. It was one of the first political organizations to grant women an equal place in its hierarchy, and its adoption of the primrose as its symbol was a stroke of marketing genius. It turned a simple wildflower into a powerful piece of political branding. So, the gentleman with the primrose in his lapel isn't declaring his undying love or his fickle nature. He's making a political statement. He is quietly announcing his support for Disraeli's legacy and the conservative cause. Suddenly, the humble little flower doesn't seem so out of place. It seems bold. It's a calculated move, a conversation starter for his allies, and a quiet challenge to his opponents in the room. And that's when you remember the other side of the political coin. If the primrose represents Disraeli and the conservatives, what represents his great rival, the formidable William Gladstone and his Liberal Party? Historians and anecdote spinners have long debated this. There's a lesser-known, though delightful, story that Gladstone's supporters, in response to the Primrose League, tried to champion their own flower. Some sources claim it was the gorse, a hardy, spiky yellow bush. Others suggest a simple white daisy, but none of them ever caught on with the same phenomenal success as the primrose. Gladstone, a famously austere and serious man, simply didn't have the same flair for personal branding as the charismatic Disraeli. The liberals, it seems, were botanically outmaneuvered. You look back at the gentleman with the primrose. He's now engaged in a quiet conversation with another man, who you notice is also sporting a small sprig of the pale yellow flowers. They have found each other. They are a club, a faction, their membership dues paid with a simple, unassuming blossom. You scan the room again, your eyes now specifically searching for more. You spot another, and then another. There are at least a dozen men here tonight who have chosen this specific flower. It's a silent political rally taking place in the middle of a society ball. The air in the room, which a moment ago felt charged with romance and social ambition, now feels tinged with something else. Political tension. The waltz music still plays, the couples still spin, the champagne still flows, but beneath it all, a different kind of dance is taking place. It's a dance of allegiance and opposition, and the primrose is the silent caller of the tune. You realize the story of this evening is not just about who is courting whom. It's about the quiet, simmering conflict between the followers of two of the most powerful men in the country, and the battleground, it seems, is the buttonhole. Your perspective on the entire evening has shifted. You are no longer just looking for romantic subplots or petty insults. You are now tracking a political schism playing out in real time. The ballroom has transformed from a social theater into a political convention, albeit one with better music and significantly more silk. You start to move through the room with a new purpose, your champagne glass serving as the perfect prop for someone who is merely mingling while actually conducting a thorough floral census. You begin to map the room's political geography. The men wearing primroses, you notice, tend to cluster together. They gravitate towards the card room, where conversations are held in lower, more serious tones over games of whist. They gather near the formidable Lord Ashworth, your host, who, you now see, is also sporting a rather large and healthy-looking primrose in his lapel. This is clearly a friendly environment for the conservative cause. The entire party, you surmise, might be a subtle fundraising event or a networking opportunity for the Primrose League. As you get closer to these groups, you try to decode their other floral choices. One man pairs his primrose with an oak leaf tucked behind it. Bravery or strength, a powerful, patriotic combination. Another has a sprig of ivy fidelity intertwined with his, signaling his loyalty to the party. These men are not just wearing a symbol. They are using the broader floral language to add nuance and emphasis to their allegiance. They are broadcasting their political virtues for all to see. Now for the more interesting question. Where is the opposition? If this is a Tory stronghold, are there any brave liberals in the room? You begin scanning the lapels of the men who are conspicuously not part of the primrose clusters. For a while, you see nothing but neutral choices. A classic white carnation, pure love. Or perhaps just a safe, generic option. A simple rosebud confession of love. These seem to be the floral undecideds. Or perhaps just men who are more interested in romance than in politics tonight. But then you see it. Standing near the French doors that lead out to the garden is a younger man, tall and intense-looking, with a shock of dark hair. He is in conversation with a woman holding a fan, but his eyes are scanning the room with a look of defiant boredom, and in his buttonhole, he wears a single, deep red poppy. You pause. This is a bold choice. You reach for your mental dictionary. Poppy red, you recall, has a simple, gentle meaning, consolation. But the poppy has other, more potent associations. It is the source of opium, a substance linked with sleep, dreams, and a certain exotic, bohemian danger. In a room full of primroses and roses, a poppy stands out as something unconventional. almost rebellious. While it doesn't have the direct, political link of the primrose, its selection feels like a deliberate counterstatement. It's an aesthetic protest. It's the floral equivalent of showing up to a formal gala in a leather jacket. You continue your search. A few minutes later, you spot an older, scholarly-looking gentleman with a small, simple blue flower in his lapel. You lean in slightly as you pass, trying to identify it. It's a cornflower. A quick mental check. Cornflower means delicacy, or, more tellingly, hope and love. But it was also known in political caricature as the bluest of blue flowers, sometimes associated with steadfast, true blue liberalism, a quiet retort to the pale yellow of the primrose. Is he a Gladstone man? The choice seems too specific to be an accident. Historians still debate the extent of these opposition flowers. Unlike the primrose, whose symbolism was officially promoted by a massive organization, any liberal floral codes were more informal, more subtle, and far less documented, making them a fascinating area of historical speculation. You feel a thrill of discovery. You have found the opposition. They are scattered, fewer in number, and their symbols are less obvious, but they are here. The man with the poppy and the man with the cornflower are making their own quiet, dissenting statements. They are refusing to join the primrose parade. The ballroom is now a subtle tapestry of allegiance and dissent. The grand arrangements by Monsieur Dubois are the official narrative, the host's public statement. But the boutonnières and tussy-moussis are the footnotes. The ball is reaching its zenith. The orchestra is playing a particularly lively polka, and the dance floor is a dizzying kaleidoscope of color and motion. The air is warm and thick, with the combined scent of perfume, candle wax, and Monsieur Dubois's wilting masterpieces. You have secured another glass of champagne, and found a new observation post near an archway, allowing you a clear view of both the main ballroom and the corridor leading to the supper room. You've mapped the political landscape. You've identified the key players, and now you're simply watching, waiting for the narrative to unfold. Asterisk for a while. The evening continues its predictable, pleasant course. You observe a clumsy suitor being gently rejected via a fan, a whole other semiotic system you haven't even begun to study. You watch the primrose-wearing host, Lord Ashworth, share a hearty laugh with a fellow Tory, their shared floral emblem, a visible bond between them. The man with the poppy continues to lurk moodily by the gardens, a picture of romantic dissent. It's a perfectly normal, if politically charged high society gathering. Asterisk then, the atmosphere subtly shifts. A new figure makes his entrance, not from the main doors, but from a private study down the hall. He is an older man, impeccably dressed, with a sharp, intelligent face, and eyes that seem to take in the entire room at a single glance. There is a hush in the conversations nearest to him, a ripple of awareness that spreads outwards through the room. People turn to look. This is clearly a man of significant importance. He exchanges a quiet word with Lord Ashworth, who nods respectfully. This, you realize, must be the guest of honor, the true centerpiece of the evening's gathering. Asterisk, you watch as this distinguished gentleman begins to circulate, a small, deferential bubble of space clearing around him as he moves. He is the sun around which the primrose-wearing planets of the room now begin to orbit. He offers a polite nod here, a brief handshake there. He is the embodiment of the conservative establishment, and then you see it. It's almost laughable in its simplicity. Pinned to the lapel of his perfectly tailored coat is a single, fresh, and unapologetically prominent primrose. Asterisk, of course, he's wearing one. He is the high priest of this floral cult, but his is different. While the other primroses in the room are modest clusters, his is a single, perfect specimen, displayed with an air of absolute authority. It's not a whisper of allegiance. It's a proclamation. This single flower, in this moment, transforms the underlying political tension into the main event. His arrival is the pivot upon which the entire evening turns. Asterisk, he continues his slow, deliberate progress through the room. You watch, fascinated, as he approaches the small group where the scholarly gentleman with the cornflower is standing. The gentleman falls silent as the great man draws near. The guest of honor stops, his gaze falling for just a fraction of a second on the little blue flower in the man's lapel. He doesn't say a word about it. He doesn't have to. His eyes flicker up to meet the man's, and he offers a thin, cool smile. He says a few pleasantries about the music, the warmth of the room, and then moves on. Asterisk, the exchange lasted no more than 10 seconds, but it was electric. It was a silent, botanical showdown. The powerful, establishment primrose, staring down the quiet, dissenting cornflower. The primrose didn't need to speak. Its victory was asserted by its mere presence, by the power of the man wearing it. The man with the cornflower is left standing in the great man's wake, a faint flush rising on his cheeks. He has been politely, and publicly, put in his place. Asterisk, this is the very essence of how this language works in a hierarchical society. The meaning of a flower isn't just in the dictionary. It's in the context, and most importantly, in the status of the person deploying it. A quirky but vital detail of floriography is that the message's impact is directly proportional to the sender's social standing. A primrose worn by a minor clerk is a personal opinion. A primrose worn by this man is a directive. Historians often struggle to convey this intangible aspect of historical power dynamics. The way a simple gesture or a symbol can carry immense weight when backed by authority. You have just witnessed a perfect, living example of it. Asterisk, the great man continues his tour of the room. He is now heading, almost inevitably, towards the French doors, where the young man with the red poppy is still standing. You hold your breath. This is the real confrontation. The established order versus the romantic rebel. The primrose versus the poppy. The man with the poppy sees him coming and stands a little straighter, a look of cool defiance on his face. The distinguished gentleman stops in front of him. The entire ballroom seems to hold its collective breath. The music, for a moment, feels very far away. The grand entrance of the primrose is complete. Now, it is time for it to speak. Asterisk, the moment hangs in the air, thick and heavy as the scent of wilting gardenias. The distinguished gentleman, the avatar of the primrose establishment, stands before the young rebel and his defiant poppy. The music of the distant orchestra seems to fade into a low hum, and the chattering of the ballroom becomes a muted, indistinct murmur. Your entire focus narrows to this single, silent interaction happening by the garden doors. It feels less like a party and more like a pivotal scene in a play, where everything is about to change. Asterisk, the older man's eyes do the same thing they did before. They drop for a brief, deliberate moment to the flower on the younger man's lapel. He takes in the deep, velvety red of the poppy. His expression is unreadable, a mask of polite neutrality. He doesn't smile. He simply looks. Then his gaze travels back up to meet the young man's eyes. The young man, for his part, does not flinch. He holds the older man's gaze, his chin held at a proud, almost arrogant angle. For a few seconds, there is no sound between them but the soft rustle of a nearby lady's fan. Asterisk, then, the older man speaks. His voice is quiet, perfectly modulated, but it cuts through the air with an undeniable authority. A bold choice, he says. Just 3 words. He is not referring to the young man's waistcoat or his political opinions. He is referring, explicitly and only, to the poppy. He has acknowledged the symbol. He has brought the subtext into the text. Asterisk, the young man offers a tight, formal smile. I find it offers a pleasing consolation, he replies, cleverly using the flower's official, innocent meaning as his shield. It's a witty, well-played defense. He's refusing to admit to any deeper, rebellious intent. Asterisk, the older man's lips curl into a semblance of a smile, but it does not reach his eyes. Indeed, he says, consolation is often what is left for those who find themselves on the less successful side of an argument. And then he adds, enjoy the supper, young man. I hear the salmon is excellent. With that, he gives a slight, almost imperceptible, nada gesture of dismissal and turns, continuing his circuit of the room as if nothing of any consequence has just occurred. Asterisk, it was a verbal execution. Polite, bloodless, and absolutely devastating. In the space of 20 seconds, the older man had acknowledged the young man's symbol of rebellion, twisted its meaning into an insult, declared it a mark of failure, and then dismissed him with a patronizing comment about the buffet. The young man is left standing alone, the red of his poppy now seeming to mirror the flush that is rapidly spreading across his face. He has been outmaneuvered, his romantic rebellion swatted down with a few perfectly chosen, condescending words. His defiant symbol has been rendered impotent. Asterisk, and now, the fallout. A quiet but immediate wave of reaction ripples through the room. The people who were close enough to witness the exchange turn to their neighbors and begin whispering behind their hands and fans. You see a woman's eyes widen as she listens to the story. You see a man chuckle quietly into his champagne glass. The news spreads from group to group, a contagion of gossip. The poppy incident is now public knowledge. The silent war has become a spoken one. Asterisk, this is a perfect illustration of a key social function of the era, the management of reputation. A person's social standing was their most valuable asset, and a public humiliation, even one as subtle as this, could be disastrous. The young man with the poppy hasn't been thrown out of the party, but he has been marked. He has been labeled as an outsider, an upstart, who challenged the established order and lost. His social currency has just plummeted. Historians often emphasize the honor culture of the 19th century, which we usually associate with duels and grand scandals. But what you've just seen is its more common, and in some ways more brutal, form. The quiet, systematic dismantling of a person's credibility within their own social circle. Asterisk, you watch as the young man, his face a mask of fury and shame, turns abruptly and strides out through the French doors into the darkness of the garden, abandoning the field of battle. His departure is a confession of defeat. The primrose has won. It didn't win through debate or force, but through the calm, confident, and utterly ruthless application of social power. The single primrose worn by the guest of honor has not just declared its allegiance, it has actively policed the boundaries of acceptable discourse within the room, and in doing so, declared a quiet, but total, social war on any who would dare to dissent. The atmosphere in the ballroom is different now. The polite fiction of universal harmony has been shattered. The party continues, but the scent of primroses now seems sharper, more political, and much, much more powerful. The morning after the ball arrives with a familiar, gentle grayness. The London sky a soft, uniform blanket of cloud. The frantic energy and artificial brightness of the Ashworth's party feel like a distant, feverish dream. You are back in the quiet solitude of your room, a cup of hot tea warming your hands, the faint, lingering scent of last night's champagne somehow still clinging to your formal jacket, which is slung over a chair. The city outside is slowly waking up. The familiar sounds of delivery carts and distant church bells filtering up from the street. Asterisk, you sit by the window, not with your little blue book of flowers, but with the morning's newspaper. It's still warm from the printing press, the ink smelling sharp and fresh. In an era before instant news, the morning paper was the battlefield where the previous day's social and political skirmishes were reinterpreted and immortalized in print. You are curious to see if the silent, floral drama you witnessed has made its way into the public record. You suspect it won't be on the front page, which is dedicated to grim news about colonial disputes and parliamentary debates. The real intelligence, as you know, is buried in the back pages. Asterisk, you turn past the dense columns of political commentary and financial news, your eyes scanning for the section you're looking for. And there it is, the society column, usually titled something grand, like Chronicles of the Beaumont or Our Social Sphere. This was the part of the paper dedicated to chronicling the comings and goings of the upper crust. It lists who is in town, which ladies were presented at court, and, most importantly, reviews of the previous night's grand parties. It was the Victorian equivalent of a celebrity gossip blog, but written in prose so purple it was almost mauve. Asterisk, you find the entry for the Ashworth's ball. The column begins with a gushing tribute to the hosts. Lord and Lady A, it reads, protecting their identity with a coy but completely transparent initial, once again proved themselves the most gracious of hosts, throwing open the doors of their magnificent residence for a fete of unparalleled brilliance. The writer goes on to praise the music, the quality of the champagne, and, just as you expected, the floral decorations. The ballroom was a veritable Eden, transformed by the genius of the Parisian master, Monsieur D, into a bower of fragrant delights. Asterisk, you skim past the fawning descriptions, searching for any hint of the underlying drama. The column lists a few of the most distinguished guests, including, of course, that great statesman and pillar of the primrose cause, who is not named but is so clearly identified that he might as well have been. The column notes his presence as the undoubted highlight of an already sparkling evening. So far, it's all part of the official pro-primrose narrative. Asterisk, but then, you find it. It's a single, masterfully catty sentence, buried deep in the paragraph. After listing a few more notable attendees, the columnist writes, one observed a rather melancholy young buck, sporting a funereal poppy, who seemed to find the general gaiety of the evening not to his taste, and made an early departure to seek, one presumes, a consolation more suited to his disposition. Asterisk, you can't help but let out a short, sharp laugh. It's perfect. The columnist has taken the older man's verbal jab, consolation, and codified it in print for all of London to read. The young man with the poppy is not named, but anyone who was there and witnessed the exchange will know exactly who is being referred to. He has been publicly, permanently branded as a melancholy young buck. His funereal poppy is now a symbol of his social failure. The newspaper has not just reported on the incident, it has delivered the killing blow. Asterisk, this is a lesser-known but crucial aspect of Victorian media. The society columns were not just passive reporters. They were active participants in the social games of the elite. A favorable mention could cement a debutante's success for the season, while a subtle, witty takedown like this one could cause genuine damage to a person's reputation. Historians often debate the identity of these anonymous columnists. Were they disgruntled aristocrats with an axe to grind? Or were they professional journalists who understood that their power lay in their ability to flatter the influential and mock the outsiders? Either way, they were the arbiters of social tastes and the enforcers of the unwritten rules. Asterisk, you read the sentence again, marveling at its efficiency. The public narrative is now set in stone. The Ashworth Ball was a triumph for the conservative cause. A wonderful evening where the great and the good gathered under the symbolic banner of the primrose, and the only dissenting voice, the single note of discord, was a sad, silly young man with an inappropriate flower who couldn't handle the pressure and left early. The power of the primrose has been confirmed and amplified by the power of the press. Asterisk. You fold the newspaper and place it on the table. The steam from your tea has drawn a small, misty circle on the window pane. Outside, the day is getting on, but you feel as if you've just read the final chapter of last night's story. The floral war was declared in the ballroom, but it was won decisively. In the black and white columns of the morning paper, The little flower you first noticed for its simplicity has revealed itself to be the command center of a vast and sophisticated operation of social and political control. It's a quiet, fragrant, and utterly ruthless system. Asterisk in the quiet days following the ball, the city seems to have returned to its normal, grumbling rhythm. The memory of the music and the scent of 1,000 flowers fades, replaced by the familiar London air of coal smoke and damp pavement. But something in your perception of the city has permanently shifted. You can no longer see a flower without trying to decipher its meaning. Every flower cart you pass on the street looks like a stall of whispered secrets. Every small garden, a potential repository of unspoken emotions. The world has become a text, and you are, for better or worse, a fluent reader. Asterisk, you spend your final afternoon in London, not in a park or a bookshop, but in a quiet, reflective mood, piecing together the final lessons of your floral education. Your journey began with a simple curiosity about a forgotten language, and culminated in witnessing that language being used as a tool of political power. The journey of the primrose, from a humble wildflower to a potent political symbol, is a perfect microcosm of how ideas and identities are forged. Asterisk, it started, as you recall, with a sentimental story, a gift from a queen to her favorite prime minister. This is the origin myth, the emotional core of the symbol. It's a story that connects the flower to royalty, loyalty, and the revered figure of Disraeli himself. This narrative was then seized upon by a clever and well-organized group of his followers, the Primrose League. They didn't just adopt the flower, they marketed it. They built an entire institution around it, with meetings, pamphlets, and social events. They transformed a wildflower into a brand. Asterisk. What you witnessed at the ball was the third and most crucial stage, the activation and enforcement of that symbol in a social context. The primrose wasn't just a passive badge of membership, it was an active tool. It was used to identify allies, to create an in-group, and, most importantly, to isolate and neutralize the opposition. The great man with the authoritative primrose didn't need to argue with the young man and his poppy. He used the shared understanding of the floral code, combined with his own social status, to shut down dissent without ever raising his voice. He asserted the dominance of his symbol, and by extension, his entire political tribe. Asterisk, this whole episode is a fascinating piece of history because it shows how abstract political ideas, conservatism, liberalism, loyalty, rebellion can be tethered to simple, tangible objects. Why the primrose? Why not an oak leaf or a lion rampant? The choice of the primrose was a stroke of genius. It was modest, native to the British countryside, and bloomed in the spring, suggesting renewal and hope. It had a backstory connected to the beloved queen. It was, in short, the perfect symbol for a political movement that wanted to brand itself as traditional, patriotic, and close to the heart of the nation. Historians still marvel at the effectiveness of the Primrose League's branding. It was one of the most successful examples of political marketing in the 19th century, creating a grassroots movement that endured for decades. Asterisk. You think about the alternative, the failed floral symbols of the opposition, the spiky, aggressive gorse, or the plain, common daisy. They lacked a compelling narrative. They didn't have a queen, a famous story, or a dedicated league to promote them. They were just flowers. The primrose, on the other hand, had become a story. It had transcended its botanical reality to become a vessel for a complex set of ideas about identity, loyalty, and power. This is the ultimate destiny of any successful symbol. Asterisk A. Quirky. Final detail you learned from a historical footnote is that for the annual Primrose Day celebrations, Disraeli's supporters required such a vast quantity of primroses that they had to be imported by the trainload from France and the milder parts of England. The symbol of native rustic Britishness was often, in reality, a foreign import. It's a perfect, ironic twist. A symbol's power lies not in its literal truth, but in the story people agree to believe about it. Asterisk. The day is done. The sky outside your window has completed its slow transition from the gray of day to the deep, inky blue-black of a London night. One by one, the gas lamps in the square below are being lit by a lamplighter with a long pole, each new flame appearing like a soft, sudden star, casting a gentle, flickering orange glow on the damp pavements and the dark, sleeping facades of the houses opposite. The sounds of the city have quieted, trading the rumble of commerce for the distant, lonely clip-clop of a late-night carriage, and the occasional mournful cry of a ship's horn from the river. Asterisk. You have finished packing your bags. The small blue book of floral meanings nestled safely between layers of clothes. Your journey into the past is over, and it's time to return to the present. You stand by the window for a final moment, looking out at the quiet gaslit scene. The world you're leaving was one of immense complexity, a place of rigid rules and hidden passions, where the most important things were often left unsaid, communicated instead through the fragile, fleeting beauty of a flower. It was a world of immense constraint, but also one of incredible, subtle artistry. Asterisk. You reflect on the silent conversations you witnessed, the hopeful exchange between the white heather and the myrtle in the park, the magnificently petty insult of the dowager's orange lilies, and, of course, the great political drama of the primrose. Each flower was a word, each bouquet a sentence, contributing to a vast, invisible dialogue that hummed just beneath the surface of society. It was a language that allowed people to navigate the treacherous waters of love, ambition, and rivalry without ever having to show their hand. A language of beautiful, fragrant deniability. Asterisk. You think of the young man with the poppy, disappearing into the darkness of the garden, his defiant gesture crushed by the weight of the establishment. His story feels like a sad one, a tale of youthful rebellion quashed. But perhaps, you muse, that isn't the end of his story. Perhaps he will find other, more effective ways to voice his dissent. Perhaps his public humiliation will forge in him a stronger resolve. The language of flowers, you realize, was just one of many ways people fought their battles. A lost argument in a ballroom is not the end of a war. Asterisk. A sense of peace settles over you. The historical journey, with all its subtle tensions and quiet dramas, is complete. You have been a silent observer, a decoder of secrets, and now your work is done. The story has been told. The gaslight on the street below casts a soft, warm pool of light, a perfect circle in the darkness. It seems to beckon you towards rest. It illuminates nothing but the wet stones and a few fallen leaves. A simple, quiet, and uncomplicated scene. There are no hidden meanings here, no secret codes to decipher. It is just the night, calm and still. Asterisk. You turn from the window and extinguish your own lamp, plunging your room into a soft, comfortable darkness, broken only by the faint, gentle glow from the street outside. You pull back the covers of the bed, the cool crispness of the sheets, a welcome sensation. As you settle in, the quiet of the room envelops you like a soft, heavy blanket. The last lingering thoughts of primroses and politics, of coded bouquets and silent wars, begin to soften and drift away. They are no longer urgent puzzles to be solved, but distant, faded images from a story that has reached its peaceful conclusion. The quiet, hidden language of the flowers has finally fallen silent, leaving only the gentle hum of the sleeping city.